Welcome to the Fantasy Grimoire podcast, Megan. It is so good to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I know this wasn't part of our original questions, but I want to kick off with a little bit of news that I saw this morning. There's a CEO, shall remain nameless. She has just advertised that her publishing platform has partnered with an audio AI company to produce audiobooks faster and cheaper. Now, I know I have thoughts about this, but I would love to start off by saying, what are your thoughts on this subject?
It's a very strong choice. It's interesting. Along with being an audiobook narrator, I'm also an actor. So I do stuff on film and TV. I've been off Broadway. I have a pretty good relationship with what it is to be a performer. And when it comes to artificial intelligence, and this is something that we're seeing more and more of, not only in the audiobook space, but in film and TV. I mean, if you look also too, recently California has made it illegal for you to be able to use AI to duplicate somebody. You cannot use AI. So I think that it is a strong choice. I think that in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, it reminds me quite a bit of Bitcoin. Now, that's not to say that it has not become more popular or has had more uses. Far from it. I think that actually in applied sciences, artificial intelligence can have some really incredible uses. That said, when it comes to the arts, when it comes to anything involving human related stuff, largely it fails. It can definitely do stuff in a very minimal way, but when we're looking at larger projects, when we're looking at bigger scopes, there's so much that it's not able to replicate, because that's not what acting is. Acting is actually reacting and having an honest experience to the material or the person in front of you. So when you're looking at artificial intelligence and you're looking at using it for audiobook narration, it's just a really hard sell. Not only that, your brain can actually tell when an artificial intelligence voice is doing something, because your brain it's literally your brain waves will try to match with the same emotion that the person who was narrating it, their brain waves. So your brain is literally trying to mimic the experience of what the narrator was feeling when they narrated it, which doesn't happen with artificial intelligence. So I think it's fancy, it's popular, and it's a strong choice, and I don't know how successful that will be in the long run.
If I look at my day job, I've mentioned this on the podcast before, I'm a product manager by day. And I would say about a year ago, we were starting to be pushed to use AI in our day jobs. Now, from an efficiency perspective, I do see merit, because there were 100% things in my day-to-day job that it improved from an efficiency perspective. And I remember one client, they work in legal tech, so they take care of the legal insurance requests in this country. And I didn't work on it, but one of my colleagues worked on it, where they used AI to make sure that the insurance requests were being allocated in a more efficient manner, saving the company more money and actually helping them solve more insurance requests. And I was like, now, for me, that is a phenomenal use case, because we're not replacing anyone. We're just making what we do better. And now, and in my day job, I have a very real concern that in the next year or two, I'm not going to have a day job, because the way people are, I almost want to say, fixating on AI to this extent where they want to use it to replace people. And I'm like, I feel like you haven't thought this through, because it's super popular. Everyone wants it, but we're also not talking about the money side of it, how expensive it is to run. And I'm not even talking on the ethical, environmental, all those aspects. So
and two, it's interesting because you're finding it in applications in a lot of different ways that do work, like you're talking about administratively. And if we're going to be talking hot takes, I recently found out that my talent agent was going to be using artificial intelligence to bolster his roster. We're talking about going from the existing 300 people to 1,000 people. And when I found out about that, I said, I'm so sorry. I can't continue working with you. Yeah. So I actually left my agency. He provided an opportunity. He said, this is what we're doing. If this aligns with you, great. If it doesn't, absolutely no hard feelings. And I said, this does not align with what I'm doing. And SAG-AFTRA actually has guidelines and safeguards in place to ensure that you cannot use artificial intelligence in ways that would replace humans. So, like, for example, you can use artificial intelligence for your administrative stuff, like you're talking about, but you can't use artificial intelligence to actually like pitch your actors to somebody. So, I think we're starting to see more and more guardrails coming into play that allow for artificial intelligence to be used in a way for appropriate application. We're not talking about replication.
So, first thing I've learned from you in this conversation is diplomacy is a strong skill of yours because going with smart choice. That, wow, well said. I would have gone with something else entirely. But
Yeah.
Megan, I do want to chat a little bit about how does one get into audiobook narrating?
Just so you know, my path is definitely not the only path. Like, there are a dozen ways to climb a mountain. My background has been in acting. Like, I've been acting professionally since I was 16 years old. And I just decided this was, I want to say like a year or so before the pandemic started. I wanted to quit my job and become an audiobook narrator. And I was terrible at it. I was so bad at it. I was bad at it. And it was like, I had to get another job and start all over again. And then actually during the pandemic, I became an editor. I'm also a book editor. Originally, I started out editing for a lot of different like online, what's the word I want to use? It's like different companies that like review products. So like I would edit their articles that would be reviewing what was the best air fryer. And then over time, it's got a little boring. And so I started to expand into literary works. So what it would look like to edit books. And then slowly I got into the indie space. And somebody that I was working with, Ali Samberts, I was editing one of her books and I saw that she was posting videos of her like putting up this little makeshift audio booth. And I was like, oh, are you narrating your audiobook? She's like, yeah, I thought I'd give it a try. I was like, well, hey, I mean, I'm also an actor. I've been looking to get back into audiobooks. If you're at all interested, I'd love to narrate this story for you. And she's like, okay, well, let me give it a try and then I'll get back to you. I was like, that's totally fair. After one day, she's like, yeah, this is really hard. I don't want to do this. She's like, could you do it for me? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I narrated all 3 books in her series, the Lead Park series. Actually, the last one I got to do with my husband as well, first audiobook that we've done together. And yeah, it just kind of took off from there. I was very lucky to have actually failed early on, so I knew what didn't work, which was not having an opinion about what you were saying, which is not having a perspective on what you were saying. And then coming back to it later, being like, oh, I actually need to use more of my acting skills. Instead of just saying the words, I'm actually living the words. So by failing earlier on, it actually taught me a lot of stuff that I needed to know to be a better narrator later on.
Again, I reference my day job. I train a lot of the younger product managers, and they ask me, how are you so fearless? And I'm like, well, I fucked up a lot. Okay, I'm talking about any mistake you can think of, I have made it. Okay, and once you understand those things, you're like, well, what's the worst can happen? I've been through that before, and I know how bad it can get. So let's try it and see if there's a different result. And I find that mistakes angle, we shouldn't be so scared of it, because it's really, as you're saying, it's what gives us this experience to draw from that we have today. It's what I tap into when I write. I mean, I'm busy going through dev edits with my editor right now, and I never necessarily mirror a character after me or someone I know, but I draw on certain experiences and then kind of flip it into a fantasy context. So like she's asking me now about a single parent thing, and I'm like, well, this is what I've drawn on for that. You have a different experience. So let's put those two together and see what comes out of it, kind of thing. I would never be able to write if I didn't have those experiences.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the second thing I have to say, so I tried to record my own audiobook as well. And because I'm like, well, I figured out how to become a self-published author. And I'm like, it's just one more step. You know, how hard can it be? Hell, I figured out how to run a podcast. So a friend of mine who is an avid audiobook consumer, she listened to my first chapter. And I'm very good with the voices, might I add. I do the evil voice quite well. And within, I think, 10 seconds, she messaged me and she was like, "You're gonna have to redo this." She's like, it's
No.
far too fast. She's like, "Your enunciation," and I'm pretty well spoken, but she's like, she's never produced an audiobook, but she was like, "I know enough about audiobooks to know that these are the things that you have to pay attention to." So
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of had to trash that one as well. It was
Yeah,
hilarious.
and two, like there are definitely authors who do it and do it well. Like that's not never to say that authors should not narrate their own audiobooks. Like if you've got the training or if you want to do the training to be able to do your own audiobook, absolutely do it. Like there's this one gal, Maggie Hoopless, and she narrated Grace of Dragons, her book. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. She was messaging me a couple times. She's like, "Wow, there's such a learning curve to this." I'm like, yeah, there is. Like, for example, listening to How I Talk into the Right Place, which was the first book that I did for Ali Samberts, versus how I just narrated Bones by K.L. Spear. There's like a good 2.5 years between those two, and working with an audiobook coach and listening to what I've done and what did and didn't work and having experiences with different recording setups. I mean, there is so much that you learn over time. And speaking to, like you said, mistakes, there's this image, and I think it was like literally these three glasses, and one is like filled up a little bit, and it's like what you learn by succeeding, and it's like just a little bit. And the other one is like what you learn by going and getting taught by somebody else, and it's a little bit fuller. And it's like what you learn from making mistakes, and it's almost all the way filled up. And so looking at that and realizing the things that I have learned through mistakes, it makes me less afraid of them. As long as I'm able to give myself grace, which is hard. Giving yourself grace is fucking hard. Um, if you're ever interested in doing audiobook narration, and I speak this to authors, I speak this to people. I actually talked to somebody just the other day who was like, I was listening to an audiobook and I was thinking, I could do this. I'm like, yeah, dude, you totally can. If you're interested in it, you can totally do it because it's a very scalable thing. Is it always enough to pay the bills and do full time?
Yeah.
I know very few people that can do that. It absolutely is possible. Like even myself, I don't do narration full time. And that's my choice. I love all of my jobs. But yeah, it's definitely something that you can learn from over time, scale based on your budget and your time available. And there are so many resources out there for coaching, for classes, like different groups. I'm a part of several Discords. We're all about helping each other learn. I don't know too many people that gatekeep, at least in the community that I have.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue into my next question. So you mentioned
Hey,
you have your fingers in multiple avenues, and you're
I
also an
do.
intimacy coordinator. Now,
I
I
am.
want you I want you to pretend I don't know what this is because it is, I would say, a relatively unique term. Do you want
Yes.
to explain to the listeners, A, what that is, and B, how did you get into that one?
Yeah. So the way that I think about, and some people might disagree with me, but I feel like this is the most accessible way for me to explain what intimacy coordination is. It's kind of like a fight director or a stunt coordinator,
Yeah.
except with spicy scenes. So
Yeah.
we're talking about scenes where people are kissing. There could be simulated intimacy. There could also be instances like I was almost brought on for one where there was breastfeeding involved. Anything that involves, yeah, which was fat. And I even like talked to another intimacy coordinator. I was like, so I have some ideas on what to do, but can you tell me, because this isn't like romantic intimacy, this is maternal intimacy, which is just very different. There were all these different things that we talked about. Like we're talking about, oh, okay, we need to make sure that we're looking at bodily fluid contact. We're talking about barriers. We're talking about clothing, like shots and everything. There was a lot involved. I was like, this is so cool. So intimacy coordination, I got excited. You can tell because I started talking really fast. Intimacy coordination, effectively, my job is to work with directors, actors, and whatever other departments are involved in either a theatrical or a film project. And I've even started expanding into audiobooks as well, where you're looking at highly intimate and highly charged scenes that, if handled in the right way, can be very impactful. and if handled in the wrong way, could potentially do emotional damage to the other person. It's kind of like the same thing in a stunt. If you had somebody getting slapped, I remember, gosh, back when I was in acting school, you actually hit them. You actually slapped them. You just figured out where to hit them so that it would be less damage. This is now instead, okay, instead of slapping them across the face and actually hitting them, if you do it from a certain angle and make the sound with your hand, then no one actually gets hit. The audience sees hit. It's the same thing with intimacy coordination.
So I just have to interrupt there for a second. The most popular example I want to reference is the whole Blake Lively "It Ends With Us" debacle.
Yeah.
And I didn't follow the case 100%, but I think she was offered an intimacy coordinator and she declined it because she could handle it on her own, I believe. And I know it also has the domestic violence storyline there as well. I haven't watched the movie because it's I'm not the target market for it. But now it's the big popular court case that's been going on for a year. And I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
could that have maybe been lessened with a little bit more of a neutral third party? Because that's what I would see an intimacy coordinator as. You have both people's best interest at heart and making sure that that creative vision is executed.
Exactly. And for the whole Blake Lively thing, I mean, that's the thing that I so wish that I had clear commentary on that, but I don't because it's not super clear because everybody is speaking for themselves versus, like you said, a third party that is speaking for the overall project and speaking for overall well-being. Since we didn't have somebody involved from the start, from what it sounds like, which ideally, you would have an intimacy coordinator involved before casting notices even go out. So then actors are aware of what exactly they are agreeing to. Like a really good example is that I recently did, I don't know if you've seen like those vertical shorts that are like an app on your phone and it's like soap operas, but it's like modern day. Okay, so I do intimacy coordination for a lot of those. And there was one where it said in the writer, which is kind of what basically breaks down for the actor what they're agreeing to in this project without having to read the entire script. And it said, you know, this, that, the gag, this, that, and the other thing. They agreed to it and they didn't realize ball gag is actually what should have been in there. So they thought gag as in like kidnapping.
Yeah.
Not ball gag, which in the scene was actually they were humiliating the girl. On the day of, she's like, I was looking at the script and I didn't realize that I had to wear a ball gag. People are like making fun of me. I don't want to do that. And I said, that is totally fair. So we came up with something else. Production was totally amenable to coming up with something else that still mimicked what they were looking for in that moment, didn't have a ball gag. But again, that's something where if an intimacy coordinator had been involved at the very start with the writer, we would have been able to specify something like that. When you have an intimacy coordinator that gets involved, especially when you've got really charged stuff like domestic violence, like forced intimacy, anything non-consensual, when you're looking at that stuff, then that's especially important to have somebody from the get-go so that way you understand what you are agreeing to. And also, too, we can start setting up stuff really early on in terms of de-rolling practices, which means it allows the actors de-rolling practices. And so that's something that I've started implementing with a lot of actors, regardless of the level of intimacy, where they literally can take whatever practice, like some people want to take 3 deep breaths while they hold each other's hands. And then after they've done that, they know that I've stepped into the character. Anything that I do from here on out is the character. And then they do a step out, which again, 3 deep breaths. I've also seen people literally just do a high five with their hands. Like,
So
high five, I'm in. High five, I'm out.
Two examples that come to mind just with you mentioning that. It's interesting that I am familiar with these things, but I've never had terminology for it the way you're using it. Did you ever watch the TV series, and this was like mid 2010s, Reign, about Mary Queen of Scots?
No, I'm sure my husband did.
Okay. Let me tell you, I am still upset that that TV show was cancelled after 4 seasons. In season 2, she gets raped because men storm into the castle. And Adelaide, I think her name's Adelaide Kane. She plays Mary Queen of Scots. Her acting in that moment made me cry during, and this is like like I can't even find the right words because the heartbreak, the fear, the terror, everything that she built into that moment She should have gotten an Emmy, as far as I'm concerned, because her acting was so phenomenal in that. I would like to believe that there was an intimacy coordinator there. And I would imagine probably Offset, the guy that had to do the act, was probably the nicest guy in the world, and he had to go ahead with that. So that was the first thing that came to mind. The second thing is Heath Ledger. We all know the thing of Heath Ledger with Batman and what that did to him and how that ended. And I'm just like, I have to wonder if a practice like this could have maybe helped prevent that scenario the way it ended. Because I get the
Yeah.
method acting, I get it, and I get why it's necessary for such a psychotic character as the Joker, but where do we draw the line?
Yeah. And I think too that's the thing is that different people are taught different things depending on where they go to train in acting. Some people are taught like you need to suffer in order to give the performance that's demanded of you. And in some instances, maybe that's true. When it comes to those kinds of things, I think about another gal she's trained in intimacy coordination, but she also works on horror and suspense films because her job is exactly what you're talking about. Her job is helping the people who are dealing with these really intense, terrifying moments to help them get elevated, to really tap in and then de-escalate so that they're not doing sustained damage to themselves. So they're reminding their brain, this is not actually happening to me. Because what you have to do as an actor is really put yourself into those situations in order to give that kind of performance.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think that intimacy coordination and what she's done too, and her name is Lindsay Framebus. She's a wonderful acting teacher. She's in Atlanta, Georgia. Highly recommend if you're out there. Those two roles, I think, are becoming more and more accepted and more encouraged. However, there are still a lot of areas of pushback. For example, I can get onto a set and I will be there fully available, ready to help. And the director does not want me there. And it's because the director feels that they have everything that they need to do the scene. It is not my job to force myself into this space. Just the same as it's not my job to go around and make sure everybody feels okay. You need your blankets and your hot cocoa. That is also not my job because I can't read your mind.
Yeah.
I never believe in the idea, and somebody said this to me a while ago, and I've adopted it and I hold fast to it, is that there is no such thing as a safe space. Because what I deem as safe is totally different to you. So it's like, instead, I try to cultivate a brave space that is deeply available for communication. So that means if it's like, that scares me, but I kind of want to try it,
Yeah.
and we just see what that looks like. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's try it. See what it looks like. And if you do it, and you're like, oh, wow, no, yeah, though, that's a boundary. Great, then we're not going to do it. Let's find an alternative. So that's what I really strive to do. And I think that kind of stuff, when it comes to a director, you're looking at directors have a very specific vision in mind. And a lot of directors will see that literally in pictures, which totally makes sense, especially for film and TV. So then when we're looking at these moments of intimacy, they have that perspective and they're trying to match it as best they can. And some people are really great at adjusting based on what their actors are meeting their boundaries with. We're still dealing with, and you mentioned this earlier, that part where me as an actor, I don't want to lose this job. I don't want to make the director unhappy. I don't want to be a problem. I don't want to be a difficult woman. So even though it might not match my boundaries, I'm going to pull up my bootstraps and do it anyway because I don't want to lose this job. Whereas if there's an intimacy coordinator as an impartial third party that is here for the project and for the people involved, they can say, you know what? I really don't feel comfortable with this. And it could be something like, I had an injury on this shoulder and I'm really worried about something further happening to it. Okay, great. Then can they grab you back here? No, that's fine. Awesome.
Yeah, the sarcastic petty bitch in me listens to all and goes, show me how AI can do that. Because it can't. It literally can't. Like,
No.
look at the situation, apply emotional intelligence, because that's actually what you're referring to. And
Yes.
using that emotional intelligence to get the best result in a way that honors everyone. And it's not an easy job because you're having to keep multiple people happy, which feels a bit like an impossible ask Correct me if I'm wrong.
Challenging act. Like I've got to be in touch with the director. I need to be in touch with the producer. Depending on the project, if it's theater, you're also talking with costumes. You're also
Yeah.
talking with the stage manager. If it's film, then you're also talking with the director of photography. You're also talking with lighting. Again, depending on the scene and the set, you're also like, okay, so she needs to be thrown over here
Yeah.
and then forced down. Does this table hold that weight? Or do we need to switch out for another table? So there are a bunch of things that you have to consider and think about. And since it is multifaceted, again, there's just it. Yeah, I can't imagine AI would ever be able to do that.
I want to take it back to your audiobook narration for a second.
Okay.
I am interested in how do you decide which audiobooks that you actually will take on as one of your projects? And has there ever been a case where you've had to turn someone away because it maybe didn't align with your values or anything along those lines?
It's a great question. So in terms of ones that I pick, I mean, I think about the stuff that I like to read. Yes, there are definitely times that I have read books that I probably wouldn't pick myself, but I've never really done any audiobooks where I'm like, I hate everything. This is not my cup of tea and I don't like what I'm doing. Just because that comes across in your narration and it is a very big challenge and a big ask of yourself to narrate something that you disagree with or do not like. So usually it is something that I would be okay with reading on my own in my off time. That way I know that I'm always going to enjoy my work. And I think that's why I'm successful at all the things I do because I like everything that I do. There have been instances where I have turned projects down and, unfortunately, it's something where it has not necessarily been about the content because I'm pretty clear up front that I don't have much in the way of like hard, fast, I won't do this. The only boundary that I really have is romanticized non-consent and romanticized dubious consent and
Mm-hmm.
romanticized any kind of underage intimacy.
Mm.
Those are my hard no's. Other stuff, like some of the hard kink I'm like, that's fine. I'll just do it under my pseudonym. Great. No worries. That kind of weeds out a lot of projects that I wouldn't be doing. The only time I've ever had to say no is when a manuscript actually wasn't ready. And there was a manuscript that came across my desk and they were really excited and they were like, I would really love to have this narrated. I want to make this into an audiobook. And I'm reading it and I'm like, I can't in good conscience do this.
Yeah.
Because it will be very difficult to do. Like when you listen to an audiobook and it just pulls you in and it's like butter, it just feels easy to listen to. That's because it was easy for us to record, because it was written to be easy to record. So if something is like, I'm already like, wait, did somebody go over here, over there, and there are fragments, and that's where kind of some of my editing background helps a little bit because I can discern how challenging the narration project will be.
Yeah.
This one was one where I was like, they had already talked about needing to revamp the book and get a different editor for it. And I said, I don't think that you can have this narrated until you have done a full revamp. So the only time I've really ever turned something down is when the person self-identified, it's not quite there, but I need to get like my first 15 to the publishers.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm so sorry. I am definitely not the narrator for you, but I
Yeah.
do wish you the best of luck. And here are some awesome editors if you need support. I also have a wide network of narrators who would absolutely be interested in learning more about your project once it's gone through the editing process.
There's that diplomacy again coming through. Yeah.
That's another thing too, is that I also am really clear when it comes to editing projects. Like, this is what I edit, this is what I don't edit. And also too, you have to be very clear on what your role is as an editor. I think sometimes, when you're an editor, and this is true for editing, this is true for audiobook narration, this is true for intimacy coordination, this is true for anybody who has a small business, which I am a small business owner. You always feel that sense of scarcity. You're like, if I don't take this job, I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm at year 1.5, so I'm still very young in my business. And so the first couple of, manuscripts that I did when I was more part-time than full-time with editing, I just took them because I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to work again. I have to do this. And those were really hard. Those were really hard edits. They took longer. I was in a bad mood because of them. And it's not to say that there was anything necessarily wrong with their manuscript. That like everybody is entitled and everybody has a place in the literary world. Your voice belongs. Someone is going to like your book. But you have to put in the effort in order to make that happen. And I was working on this book and I'm like, this is not something that I would read. This is not something that I would enjoy, which is why I always do a sample edit. And I always, say, I need to see what your voice is and see what your style is, see where you're at before I agree to doing the entire thing. I want to make sure that I create relationships that are supportive on both ways, kind of like what you said.
So on that note, I want to take it back to hot take. You mentioned one at the beginning.
Hot take!
But I ask every guest this question. What is your hot take?
Okay. I will say that this is heavily influenced by being an intimacy coordinator. And I teach several workshops throughout the year in different things that, again, are influenced by the work that I do in stunts and stage combat and the work that I do in intimacy coordination. So when it comes to writing spicy scenes and when it comes to writing violent scenes, I feel like some authors will try to get away with general brawl, they kiss, or the biggest hot take that I have in this area is when we're reaching a climax, literal climax in spicy moments in an intimate scene. And this is specifically in regards to when there are only two people. I haven't necessarily noticed this with two or more, that when we get to the climax, the first person that has the climax is the one that gets the feature. Stars shatter. Like, my vision splintered. I cried out. World shattered underneath it. Like, all of that stuff. And then the second person is finished. Like, what? What?
I'm sorry.
Did he
I am
just...
guilty of this. I am so guilty of this. Oh my god. I promise you that's ever influenced my spy scenes going forward now.
And I have a workshop coming up that I'm doing with the place that I'm a company member of for stage combat. But the one that I'm doing coming up is writing fights and violence. And literally what we do is we take 4 author scenes. I do a line edit, go through and make adjustments. A fight director choreographs the scenes based on the changes that we made. And then actors actually act out the scenes. So then authors can see what is happening. And I do that too. I've got one coming up in December that's writing spice and intimacy. It's the same thing where I'm going to be putting on my intimacy coordinator hat, taking these scenes, doing a line edit and going, all right, if we've got all this stuff happening right here, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it cheats out, in my opinion, the whole point of what intimacy storytelling and violent storytelling is, which is that actually these heightened moments, they provide an opportunity for you to be able to get the most base characteristics of a person. The way that someone acts in such a vulnerable moment through violence or intimacy gives a very clear window to who they are and what their makeup is at that point in time. That could also change down the road. So I think people are actually cheating themselves by glossing over these moments, by saying, oh, swung a few punches and landed on the ground. Who hit first? Who was the one that started? Who shoved first? If they hit somebody, did they do like a pushback and like, I don't want to fight you, dude? Like that says something very different than fist connecting to the jaw and continuing forward. That says, I am the aggressor. Fuck you. I'm coming for you. Whereas like, fuck you, fuck off, man, but I don't want to do this. Those are two very different characters and say very different things about who they are in their element. So my hot take is that when it comes to moments that have a little bit more, require a bit more outside support, yes, I think that sometimes authors will go, yeah, it's fine, the reader will figure it out. Like, you're missing a really wonderful opportunity to provide some stellar insight to your characters and to the story.
God, you're an incredible storyteller. Like, just the way you're going into this now, I'm like, I'm actually just thinking of my one book that just drafted is incredibly almost want to say violent, but violent in different ways. And it's the conclusion in the trilogy. And I'm listening to you talk, and I'm already making mental notes of all the things I want to go back and fix based on your feedback. And this is what I mean when I say to you, we can have different opinions or different perspectives as long as we discuss it in a respectful manner. And this is what I find it. And I've just learned something from you, which is why I do this podcast, because we're giving the listeners access to incredible people like you.
Oh my gosh, of course. And hey, you are more than welcome. Like those workshops that I host, yes, we have author participants, which that's when you workshop your scene. But I also make sure I'm like, I do not want to gatekeep this information. There are observer spots. So you can come and watch other authors go through the process. So if you are ever interested in doing one of those workshops, I mean, next year, we've got writing fights and violence. We've got writing spice and intimacy. We've got writing injuries and unaliving.
I do want to take it back to your audiobooks for a second. Best moment and worst moment during audiobook narration for you.
My life. Okay, we'll start out with worst. We'll start out with worst moment. So this is something, again, mistakes we learn from.
Okay.
I was doing, you can listen to this and hear what I did with it. So when I was narrating the Lead Park series for Ellie Sambert's, book 1 is The Right Place. And I narrated the main character right about here. This was the POV. Then her friend came in and she was up here. And this is how she talked the whole time. I didn't think about how the fact that the friend is the main POV in the second book in the series. So, and I'm like, I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to listen to that for like 8 hours.
Okay.
So, yeah. I mean, I did pitch her a little bit higher. I pitched her right here.
Yeah.
But I didn't go anything crazy.
Yeah.
That was one of the more, like, even thinking about it, my gut is churning a little bit at how frustrating that was. Last moments, I would say, are any time that an author gets me to cry. And it's interesting because it's usually not at moments where somebody dies. Sometimes that'll happen. Like there's one that I did for Darkness Comes Again by K.M. Davidson. And I remember this so clearly. And it's this one character, Clint, and he has this, effectively, it's a chronic debilitating disease. And he's just this kid. He's like maybe 10, 12. He's talking about how he's like, I would give anything to be a knight. How am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to go out into the world and be like that when I'm like this? He's just gesturing into himself in the bed. I fucking lost it. And then also too for
I've read and I remember Clint. He was one of the standout characters to me because I was like 12-year-old to because he was 12 years old. It's been a while since I've read it, but I was like
and as somebody that has several different chronic, diseases that I live with, I was just like, gosh, that speaks to me. The way I said gosh right now, that was like my mom from Michigan. That was so hard. Gosh, that was a rough moment. There was another one too that in Bones by K.L. Spear where I know that's the other thing too is you're an audiobook narrator, you have to read the entire book before you narrate it. I'm not going to, because I have to know if I'm setting stuff up. And fortunately for me, when I started narrating Bones, I had read Bones and Fangs, which is a multi-book series. So I knew that what I did in Bones needed to inform what I would be doing in Fangs. It was interesting. I didn't expect it, but there were some really sweet moments between these two characters. They're falling in love and like she's finally letting her guard down and letting somebody in. Just those moments were so sweet. And just to see her open up after being hurt and abused and treated so poorly for just being born as who she was, seeing that gentleness starting to shine through, tears to my eyes. In moments like that, when I have a genuine emotional reaction, even though I've read the book, just performing it makes me feel something and I have to like pause. Those are always winning moments for me because I feel like I'm doing my job and I love doing that.
I write dark, sweet and cozy is not really my thing. But every now and then, I always want to say these sweet moments slip out. And because I think I enjoy this, I think the correct phrase is juxtaposition of, sure, everything's dark and gloomy and here's your moment of hope. And I love it when those moments peek through. And I wrote this throwaway line in my one book, which I didn't think much of it. In the moment, it was what the character needed. But one of my beta readers turned around and said to me, she was like, how could you do that? That is the most beautiful thing I've ever written. And I was like, what just happened? Did someone die? And the line went, I can't remember, it's been a while, but it went something along the lines of, she saw the darkest parts of me and she loved me anyway. And it's
Yeah.
just about, like you're saying, letting someone in, even though everything seems super fucking dark and gloomy. I think there's beauty in that.
I think, and that's another thing too that I like about, again, violent storytelling, intimate storytelling, audiobook narration, editing. The human brain loves contrast. And this is something that I learned in acting. That's why when you get a really big laugh on like a TV show, it's usually because it was like quiet, 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 and then somebody yells and you laugh at the yell. It's the same thing, like those punchy moments for darkness really only work if you have light. And the light doesn't feel as impactful if you don't have darkness. Maybe this is another bookish hot take, but I freaking love a third act breakup. Give it to me. I need Gandalf to die. I need it. Because if we don't have that, if we don't have a freaking old Yeller moment, and it doesn't quite hit the same in other areas. The recovery isn't as bright. The struggle isn't as much. When you really set up those contrasts, black and white, and then live a little in the gray in between, it just makes for so much fun diversity in what you experience when you're reading a story or listening to a story or watching a story.
I have to kill a few characters off now, and I messaged my editor.
Yes,
Like, I
do
don't
it.
want to do it. I'm literally stamping my feet now as I tell you this, because I don't write romance, so it's fine. I'm not beholden to the whole happy endings thing. But I'm just like, they've been through so much. Can they just not catch a fucking break? It also sounds a little bit crazy when I explain it like this, because this is all coming from my brain. I'm literally arguing with myself right now.
Yeah, I just finished this book that just came out, and actually this is the first book that the place that I do stage combat, New York Combat Stage and Screen. This is the first time that we've actually been credited in a book, and it was for The Outlaw Witch of Sherwood by Brittany Hansen, and we helped her out with a quarterstaff fighting scene because it's a Robin Hood gender bent thing. It's so fun. It's dark, but it's also like there's blood magic, and it's really fun. So we helped with the knife scene. We helped with the quarterstaff scene. I remember, like, I'm reading all this stuff that's happening to the main character. It's terrible. The thing that made me text Brittany and go, "You bitch," is when one character got killed. And I won't say who it is, obviously, but I was like, how dare you? Also, that was exactly the right call.
It's hilarious. I love that. We have, I want to say, two camps here where readers are demanding more audiobooks, but then we also have indie authors going, I can't produce an audiobook as much as I'd love to because it's expensive. But then we get someone like you who knows what actually goes into the cost of producing an audiobook, because it's not a cheap exercise. Do you want to maybe give us a little bit of insight into what are some of the costs that you go through when producing an audiobook? And let's discuss that.
Oh my gosh, of course, happy to. There are a lot of things to consider. And again, I want to make this super, super clear. Again, very scalable. Where I am at in my career and for what I, have paid for like my setup and my equipment, what I paid for training, my experience level dictates where I'm at. I'm a union actor, so that dictates my rates as well. There also too are people that I work with who, in my opinion, are incredibly skilled. They have a great setup, and because of their cost of living, they don't have to charge as much as I do. This is not a catch-all statement by any means. When you look at the narrator's side of expenses, the very biggest thing that you are looking at is time, because time is not something that we can buy from anybody else. In order to calculate your finished estimated time for your audiobook, you take your word count, you divide by 9,300, and that will give you your estimated length. Once we know how long your audiobook is going to be, and from there we calculate based on how much time it's going to take us to record the audiobook, which again can differ based on the genre, based on the writing quality, based on the type of narration. And then also, too, we think about things like time it takes to do the book work, marking things up. Some people will like highlight all the different characters in different colors. Some people will write notes in the margins. Also, too, the work that it takes to figure out all of the pronunciations, things like that. And then there's actually recording it, taking the time to sit in our booth and record things. Depending on how much time we have, or if we have another job, that could be 5 hours, that could be 2 hours, it could be one. And then there's also time that it takes to edit everything together and make it a finalized product. And that can differ based on the length, that can differ based on the audiobook type. There are a lot of different things that go into even graphic audio. That's a whole different ballgame. So when you're looking at the cost for an audiobook, I've done a couple of slides on my Instagram about this. The most important things that you want to think about for cost is how long is my audiobook going to be? What type of narration do I want? And when do I need this released? If you are like, I need to have a multicast audiobook for a 20-hour book released in 2 months, that is a tight timeline. You better have a lot of money for the fast turnaround time, for the editing that goes into it, and for hiring all these different actors and then handling the paperwork. Because I also do editing and intimacy coordination, I will hire somebody to do my book work for me. I will still read the entire book top to tails. I hire an editor to go through my book, highlight things, figure out pronunciation and all that. And I can just experience the book the same way that a reader does, but I pay for that. Well, I know my strength is not in editing. I am not good at it whatsoever. So I pay. I've got like 3 different editors on my go-to. And so I pay them to edit my audiobooks for me. So my rates, for example, like let's say that I was charging for a dual audiobook, which is two narrators that are narrating assigned chapters. That means anybody and everybody that speaks and the narration in my chapter is mine. This is different from duet. Duet and multicast is where you're doing assigned characters and assigned narration. So let's say for dual audiobook, and this is as of 2025, my rates might be different if you're listening to this later. Your audiobook ended up being 8 hours. And let's say that I charged $315 for an 8-hour audiobook. So that means on your end that you would be paying $2,520. Now, I'm going to take 100, we're going to take 95 away from 315. So 315 minus 95, because that's what I'm going to be paying my editor per finished hour. So now we're looking at 8 hours times 220. So I'm actually only getting paid out $1,760. Not actually though, because we're actually taking $1,760 and dividing that by 2 because the other narrator is also doing half of the book with me. So then for my assigned parts, for my assigned chapters, if I'm doing half of the book, I'm doing an 8-hour audiobook, or in this instance, 4 hours for $880. Wait just a second. We need to take another 100 to 150 away from that for the book work. So we're actually looking at probably like 780, somewhere in there, for 4 hours.
When you break it down like that, it puts so much into perspective. As we spoke about off air, I want the audiobook and we're chatting about that. Sure, it's a lot of money for me to find out. It's an investment to make up front. I think where the risk comes in from the author side is we have no way of knowing if we will get return on our investment. But that is neither your problem or it's not something I can control. Okay, so it's you kind of have to decide, hey, do I want to invest the money and possibly have to just part with it? That's what it is. When I hear it explained like that, and the amount of effort that you need to go into to just even prepare for this, I really feel like it's value for money. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I think indie authors around will be like screaming at me. I actually feel like you could afford to charge a bit more.
That's the thing too, is that I charge about the same as a lot of other people that I know. If I charge a little bit more, again, it'll be for SAG-AFTRA, union dues and things like that. So it is definitely accessible. I could charge more, but also too, I want to make sure that audiobooks happen. Accessibility is really, really important to me. Something that I'm passionate about, and I've done a couple of different ventures in this, is like, starting next year, I'm going to have a course available, self-paced course. You pay $30 and you can learn how to crowdfund money for your audiobook. Also, I am the artistic director at the Indie Audiobook Network, which is a place that we have created that essentially is the midpoint between trying to do everything on your own on Audible, like where you're getting 50 auditions and trying to sort through everything and figure out what do I do? And then also hoping and praying that a production company buys the rights to your book. which doesn't happen for everybody. But the Indie Audiobook Network is something where we're right in the middle. We've got a roster of about 50 narrators that are available. The range of their prices is huge. Also, two people are open to do royalty share depending on the book. We make it so that the authors send us their project. We pitch it to our entire roster. Those that are interested submit an audition, and then we take the top 10 and send that to the author based on what fits best from what they've sent us. From there, they can either just do that and we get a finder's fee. You can also work with us directly and then we can help you through the audiobook production process. Or you can also have a project manager handle everything for you so that you can just have creative control. You're not having to do all the legwork for it. And that's scalable based on what you can afford and what the narrators are willing to bring forward. Because I think that it can just be very challenging and overwhelming to do an audiobook. The other resource that I offer up to the authors is you absolutely can make money back on your audiobooks. And I know Rebecca Hefner is an author. She does a huge amount of, my God, so many different genres under different pen names. And she makes most of her money off of audiobooks because she's really good at marketing them. So there are different places. If you look up Rebecca Hefner, she has a Facebook group that is specifically about marketing your audiobook. It does take some legwork, but you can totally make the money back. But I think it's true. You're making an investment and you have to pitch your audiobook and market your audiobook the same way that you market your paper book.
On the subject of books, I want to hear from you. What is one fantasy book that you believe deserves far more love from the community than it's been getting at the moment?
Where's my Kindle? Well, I mean, there's one that I'm reading right now that's really good. Oh, but that's really good too. Oh my God, don't make me choose. Okay, I'll just say the one that I'm reading. Say the one that I'm reading right now that I really love, which is Dawn of the Darkest Day, Casey Woodruff, my friend Casey. It's like I finally got into a headspace where I was able to take it in because it is dark fantasy. It's just so well done, though. The way that she has done world building has been really interesting. It's a unique magic system, but the magic system isn't forefront. It's like it exists. It's part of the world, just the same as the weather. It's not like, let's talk about your powers. It's like, yeah, he's immortal.
Yeah.
Bet. Like that's it. So that one is really great. It's doing well, but I definitely think more people would enjoy it. There's a book that I'm narrating coming up called Auras of the Fallen Stars. That one's really fun. Also, like I'm going to be narrating the second book in K.M. Davidson's series, Fate Demands Sacrifice, which is the sequel to Darkness Comes Again. That's really great. Basically, any indie author who has really taken the time to think about, like I said this about The Outlaw Witch of Sherwood for Brittany Hansen. I was like, if you asked her what tincture her version of the Merry Men would put together to handle a stomachache, she could tell you. When they've got good world building, that's what I love in any kind of fantasy book.
As we start wrapping up, I do have to ask two-part question. Number one, are there any exciting things that you can tell us about that we can expect from you next? And also, what is the best way to support you? The listener is vibing with you and they want to connect with you.
Great questions. I mean, honestly, I don't say this to be what was the word that you used earlier is like, oh, so politically correct or like so, what was the word? I'm not saying it to be polite.
Diplomatic. That was the
diplomatic. Yeah. I'm not saying this to be diplomatic at all. I am legit excited for everything that I'm working on right now. I've got an intimacy coordination gig for a commercial for the first time. I'm really excited about that. I'm going to be doing editing for a couple of books actually, that I did developmental editing for. So it's always fun to have those come back for line edits. And then I've got Fangs by K.L. Spear. That's going to be coming up. I'm recording that in the first part of 2026. Fate Demands Sacrifice. Excited about that. Working with a couple of new authors in 2026 for audiobook narration, which I'm thrilled for. And then also for my own personal stuff, I've got some physical injuries that I'm working through. Because along with doing intimacy coordination, editing, and audiobook narration, I also, as I've mentioned, do stunts and stage combat. So we're releasing a fanfic that we filmed this summer, me and a couple of gals. It is from the game The Last of Us Part 2. It is a fight between two characters that was in a lake, and we did it. So I'm really excited for that to come out.
Yeah.
It's being edited right now. And now I've just kind of gotten into this mindset of like, how do I make games from like fights from video games into reality? So that's kind of a fun passion project that I've locked onto. I'm looking to explore fights in Baldur's Gate, looking to explore fights in God of War, looking to explore fights in Assassin's Creed, looking to explore fights in Red Dead Redemption. So those passion projects are kind of things I'm doing on the side to show that strong women exist and to show that women of all kinds of bodies can be strong, and to put that in the gaming space, which can sometimes be a little intense. So the best way to support narrators, there's 3 easy ways to support them that doesn't cost you a dime. When you're leaving reviews, make sure that you include the narrator. Talk about us and include us, because then we can actually use those as testimonials when we're pitching ourselves for jobs. So if you're loving an audiobook, you're like, oh my God, this was great. Just note how the performance was. Say something about us. Same thing too when you're doing a post on social media about a book that you've read and you've read the audiobook, be sure to tag us and then follow us on social media. You can find me on Instagram, and I've also started beefing up my YouTube channel quite a bit. And then if you want to join one of the workshops or work together, reach out. I'm always open for a conversation. I'd love to connect.
I do want to wrap up, and I want to say thank you so much for your time today. I have loved
Of
filming this episode
course.
with you. I have
Ditto.
so much from you, and I actually just cannot wait to see your career progress.
Thank you so much. It's been such a delight, and I can't wait to read your work.